Before the video starts, I have good news and bad news. The bad news is my little app that I use to exchange photos and videos from my camera to my phone decided to delete 9 of the videos. The good news is I caught every train with my new camera, this being my Canon T7, which I got brand new. And also I did get some videos on my phone. Luckily it wasn't anything crazy rare, it's just some foreign power. Anyways, on to the video. In today's video we will be railfanning on BNSF's main line through the Mojave Desert, this being the Needle subdivision and the Cajon subdivision. After a 4-hour drive from our home in San Diego all the way down to a place I wanted to go, we made it to Daggett, California. As soon as setting up, we catch our first train of the day, this being a BNSF eastbound manifest, this having BNSF 7459 leading. Alright, time for the trains that my camera app decides to say no to. Our next train would be a BNSF port stack intermodal with BNSF 3830 leading, a tier 4 GEVO. It also had some Norfolk Southern foreign power second. I did film this train on my phone, but then my phone died. Yay! I did move down a couple miles to a crossing just east of Barstow, California. Immediately after getting there, another eastbound port stack rolled through doing about 60 miles an hour. This had another tier 4 GEVO leading, this being 3701. This train also had some Norfolk Southern foreign power, also had a DPU at the very end. Not too long after that intermodal, a Union Pacific manifest rolled through heading eastward. I believe the train was this symbol on the screen. This had a pretty good consist with an SD70AH leading, and an SD70M trailing 4th. I actually got this train on video too. I'd then make my way back to Yermo Road in Daggett, where I originally was. Immediately after arriving back, a BNSF eastbound Z train rolled through doing about 60 miles an hour with a fake bonnet trailing third. I also ended up getting a video of this train on my phone. After that BNSF Z train, I took some photos of the nearby sign and the crossing. While taking pictures, all of a sudden the crossing started going off, and I got this pretty cool picture while the crossing was going down. The crossings were going down for a BNSF westbound port stack train with BNSF 6859 leading. This unit ended up having a pretty interesting sounding K5HL. I also got this train on my phone. Not too long after, a BNSF westbound manifest rolled through with BNSF 7077 leading. There was also a fake bonnet at the very end of the train. Our next train would be a Union Pacific eastbound empty coal train with UP 7422 leading. And yes, I got a video of this train on my phone as well. About another 20 minutes later, another BNSF eastbound Z train rolled through doing about 60 miles an hour, with BNSF 7315 leading. Lucky for me, because I also recorded this train with my phone. Not too long after, a westbound BNSF Bear Table rolled through, this having BNSF 7053 leading. This train also had CPKC foreign power, this being XKCS Unit 4763. Alright, now I can show camera videos again. Yippee. Not too long later, a 9 hour late Amtrak Southwest Chief number 3 heading to Los Angeles flew through at 79 miles an hour. This had P42DC number 7 leading. Fun fact, I actually saw this unit not too long ago in Salt Lake City. Not too long later, another BNSF manifest rolls through, heading eastbound, this having BNSF 6722 leading. Make my way down to the Santa Fe Street River crossing, just about a half a mile away from the Yermo Street River crossing. This crossing marks the start of the Union Pacific SEMA subdivision. This subdivision carries trains from Daggett, California, all the way to Las Vegas, Nevada, and onwards to Salt Lake City. The reason I came down here is because I saw a Union Pacific eastbound Z train, ZLBDV, passing the Barstow rail cam. About 10 minutes after getting there, 4 AC-44s lead the train onto the SEMA subdivision, with UP 6639 leading. I'm gonna be completely honest. This train did not need that DPU. Besides that useless DPU, I noticed a westbound port stack intermodal tied down. And holy crap, this thing was huge. All of a sudden, me and my grandpa noticed the train started to move. So we decided to race over back to the Yermo Street crossing. Not to railfan it there, but to chase it on Route 66. While stopped on Route 66, the train rolled through with BNSF 5933 leading. We then started pacing it on Route 66. Alright, chase is over. We then turned around to get onto I-40 to head down to Barstow. While going back on Route 66, we saw the mid-DPUs of the train. This train ended up having 4 in the middle, which equals to 10 engines in total for this massive train. While on I-40, I saw the same train stopped again. I'd make my way down to the Western American Railroad Museum, which is right next to the Amtrak station in Barstow. They had quite a good collection, including a few cabooses, a Arizona and California passenger car of some sort, a ex-ATSF SD40-2, a GE 44-tonner, I think, a Santa Fe FP45, another SD40-2 ex-Union Pacific, some other stuff in the back, a very old ex-ATSF baggage car, I think, and my personal favorite, the beep. Okay, anyways, back to mainline train. After checking out the museum, I'd scope out a spot near the Barstow rail yard. Immediately after climbing on top of my grandpa's truck like a foamer, I would scope out the yard, which featured 2 fake bonnets, a blue bonnet SD40-2, a B40-8, and much more. I then make my way down to the Bryman Road Railroad crossing in Oro Grande. The first train we'd see there is an eastbound port stack intermodal with BNSF 3702 leading. Our next train would be actually the massive port stack intermodal we saw pacing in Daggett. This train needs no further introduction. BNSF 5933 leading. After getting some lunch, I would head over to Cajon Pass. Immediately after arriving into our spot, I would see the same intermodal we've been chasing since Daggett. Not too long later, it then departed. I would then try to chase the intermodal, but then failed, sadly. However, we did see another train heading eastbound, so we went back to the crossing. Not too long later, the BNSF eastbound port stack rolled through, with BNSF 7879 leading. Once the eastbound port stack ended, a westbound port stack came through on the adjacent track with BNSF 3944 leading. I'd then raced the port stack intermodal down to... Okay, how do you pronounce this road? I'm just gonna put it up on screen. I ended up beating the intermodal. After that intermodal, I finally had a minute to relax. Right after sitting down in my chair, Alright, I am never relaxing in Cajon Pass again. About a minute after the lead locomotives on the westbound Union Pacific Manifest passed, another Union Pacific Manifest came into view, this time heading eastbound. UP 6912 would be leading this manifest. after this, I decided to call it a day. However, this isn't the end of the video. Now, since my upload schedule is pretty horrific, I decided to collide 2 videos into one. So, you're welcome. Exactly 1 week later, I would be back out in Cajon Pass. Our first train in Cajon Pass, which would be on Cajon Boulevard, would be a westbound BNSF autorack with BNSF 5163 leading. Not even a minute later, Amtrak Southwest Chief number 3, which was running 2 hours late at the time, passed through Cajon Boulevard with P42 170 leading. We then tried to chase this train down to this road. Sadly, we didn't beat it though. Upon returning to Cajon Boulevard, we'd be greeted by a westbound port stack intermodal with BNSF 7318 leading. I then make my way down to the Vista Road railroad crossing in Hellendale. The only train we saw there was a westbound manifest heading to San Diego with BNSF 8318 leading, with quite the impressive consist. I then make my way down to the Indian Trails railroad crossing, and I don't know why, but the wind decided to pick up by 100 miles an hour, so yeah. Besides the wind, our first train would be a BNSF eastbound port stack intermodal with BNSF 9246 leading, and holy crap, this thing was flying. Not even 5 minutes later, UP ZLBDV flew through, doing about the same speed as the port stack intermodal with UP 5361 leading. I then decided to head down to the Victorville Amtrak station to see if we can catch a train there. While on Route 66, I saw a 3x3 BNSF eastbound port stack. I would then see a ex-Norfolk Southern GP38 switching at a grain factory in Oro Grande. I took this time to take some pictures of it. On the other side of the grain factory, I saw this. EMD X7101 is one of two EMD GP22 Eco demonstration locomotives. This locomotive was originally made in 1968 for the ill-fated Penn Central. After the Penn Central fell down the stairs, it ended up in the hands of Conrail. It would then get sold almost immediately in 1976 to Kansas City Southern, and rebuilt into a GP40-3 in the early 1990s. At some point in its life, I don't know when, it was acquired by EMD and rebuilt into a GP22 Eco along with EMD X7102. The GP22 Eco rebuilds ended up being a success, and the KCS and Ferromex took interest. Today it still switches at this grain factory in Oro Grande. Do not ask how hard it was to get those photos. I literally almost sprained my ankle trying to go up the hill. Immediately after getting to Victorville, I'd be greeted with a BNSF local, this having BNSF 6738 leading. After that, I decided to drive down to Commerce Station, which instead of taking, an hour and a half, it took 3 hours. And thanks to that delay, I would see this on the road. Of course, the only time when the comets run. As soon as I get to the Commerce station, I would see Metrolink 618 heading to Laguna Niguel with MP 36895 leading. After the Metrolink, I decided to take a choice. Whether I go down to San Diego and catch the Comet set heading back northbound, or stay in Commerce for the rest of my time. Note, this was my final day of railfanning in SoCal before I go back to Utah. Utah content coming soon, I promise. After a couple minutes of deciding, I said, fuck it. And we drove 2 hours all the way down to San Diego. Specifically, the Knoll Street River crossing. About 10 minutes after getting to my spot, Amtrak 587 will roll by with CDTX 9225 in the lead, 7 Comet car coaches, and Amtrak Dash 8503 pushing the consist. After this train, I would call it a day. This would conclude my 2025 summer vacation to Southern California. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time in Utah.